Balboa Park, with its beautiful buildings, landscapes, and world-class museums, it's the perfect setting for model trains, the San Diego Model Railroad Museum, a 27,000 square foot indoor model railroad display, is one of the largest in the world. Here, the heritage of California railroading is preserved in a series of miniature representations brought to life by the imagination and skill of dedicated hobbyists. Combining mechanics and electronics with design, drafting, building, and art, the Model Railroad Museum showcases hand-built craftsmanship and high-tech components as it celebrates history and popular culture side by side.
In a way, the name museum is a misnomer. One might think that a model railroad museum would be a place where artifacts of ancient model railroading were collected. But in fact, what it is an operating exhibit that's a model exhibit of a railroad as a museum of that railroad. And the fact that it operates also makes it a great attractor for kids and people who want to see something more than something in a glass case.
You can interact with the engineers. In the three-rail, we have anybody will hand you a throttle and say, go to it.
We really have an obligation to show what can be done with this hobby because we have been given such a good opportunity. We have 27,000 square feet in the cultural center of the city.
Model railroading traces its roots back to the toy trains of the 19th century.
It's actually a floor toy, or a floor train. And it's cast iron, it's an Ives, made in about 1880. It introduced children to trains. And the fact that when they see a real train, they had their own miniature at home.
Toy trains became electrified in the early 1900s. Companies like Lionel, Ives, and American Flyer helped popularize them by copying real-life railroads. By the 1930s, modelers were making toy trains look more like the real thing. These were called scale models, since they attempted to precisely replicate real trains in a smaller scale.
Well, I think the grown-ups got to looking in the mid-30s at these toy trains and became intrigued with it and said, well, we could do a little bit more improvement on this and have actually a scale model of a train.
Minton Cronkite, a pioneer model railroader from Connecticut, developed a business making scale model locomotives and cars. He showed off his skill in an exhibition of scale model trains at the 1935 California Pacific International Exposition in San Diego's Balboa Park. Minton hand-built the giant 40 by 70 foot diorama and the Santa Fe engine that ran on it.
Milton Cronkite was really considered one of the pioneers in model railroading. He built all this equipment by hand and probably surprised a lot of us that, you know, the equipment even still runs today.
His streamlined Santa Fe Super Chief, donated to the museum by Minton's grandson, is fully restored and is on display at the San Diego Model Railroad Club's Cabrillo Yard. Minton's dedication to prototype modeling helped change the hobby forever. No longer just a toy for children, it would grow into a serious hobby for adults. Following on the heels of Minton's success, model railroad clubs sprang up in San Diego. In 1939, the Balboa Model Railroad Club was established, modeling O-scale trains at various locations around the city. In the same year, the San Diego Model Railroad Club was established for a new, smaller scale of trains, HO. Setting up shop in a walk-in chicken coop in East El Cajon, the layout featured excellent modeling and realistic scenery. In 1949, the two groups joined forces, sharing space in Balboa Park's House of Charm under the banner of the San Diego Model Railroad Association. For 30 years, they exhibited for the enjoyment of the community on Sunday afternoons.
Mainly the members in the club and everything at that time were just self-indulging. But the benefits were enormous because the public was getting exposed to it whether they wanted to or not. The emphasis was put into modeling trains, and so everybody was trying to get them as accurate as they can in a scale.
By the 1950s, HO scale began to surpass O scale in popularity. Its affordability, smaller size, and realism made it attractive to a new generation of modelers, including a group of teenagers from La Mesa, a suburb of San Diego.
We were trying to create a model railroad that was bigger than anything any of us could do by ourselves in the space we had available.
With support from parents and the city of La Mesa, they incorporated into a club in 1962 and built an HO scale layout in an old firehouse called Nebo Hall.
One of the things that characterized the guys that were in the first part of the club was that there were a lot of us who were actually rail fans as well as modelers.
Going back to the beginning, it was all fun and games until college age or high school graduation. We had lots of jobs on the railroad, and our attitude changed from having fun only to be a more prototypical operation. We weren't just run down to the hobby shop and build it guys. We were go out and watch the railroad run, learn how it runs, look at the details on all the equipment and try to model that.
The La Mesa Model Railroad Club gained a national reputation for its strong fidelity to the prototype, with highly realistic backdrops, miniature buildings, and features of Southern California railroads. Another San Diego modeling group made its debut, the San Diego Society of N-Scale. At about half the size of HO, N-Scale offered maximum action in even less space. Model railroading was growing and changing, and soon San Diego's model railroad clubs would be too, as destiny united them in an unexpected way. By the 1970s, beautiful Balboa Park, one of San Diego's crown jewels, was beginning to show its age. Plans were underway to revitalize the area when arson fires destroyed two of the park's great old wooden buildings.
The three-alarm fire in Balboa Park last night destroyed the electrical building.
The first alarm went out at 8:14 last night.
The fire marshal's response was quick. Old wood buildings, like the House of Charm, were condemned. The San Diego Club suddenly found itself without a home. That same year, the La Mesa Model Railroad Club lost its lease at Nebo Hall and was shopping for new space.
I and a couple of other members of the club started looking around to see what we could find for space, connected with some people in the city park department, and they pointed out that the San Diego Model Railroad Club, where we'd all met originally, was also out of their space.
The two of the organizations got together and petitioned the city for space in this building as it was being rebuilt, and they became then the San Diego Model Railroad Museum.